Hi and welcome to a new video, another CES 2020 coverage video today from Thermaltake. Next to me we have the Distro-Case 350p, which is a new production case from Thermaltake. What makes this case kind of unique and special is the fact that it's just one massive Distro-Plate. That also explains the name Distro-Case 350p. The case will be available for $599 US here in the US. Availability should be end of March. And looking at the case, you can see the Distro-Plate in the back, which is extremely thick. I think it's made of two parts with about 10mm thick acrylic clamped together, which then forms the Distro-Plate itself, which is also the mainboard tray. $599 for the case maybe sounds a little bit expensive, but just the fact that it's a case that it's already a Distro-Plate, so you don't have to invest like $250 into a Distro-Plate, and it also comes with the D5 pump already mounted in the bottom right here. I think the price is quite reasonable. Unfortunately, it only comes with one radiator mounting space in the front, so we only can mount one 360 radiator at the moment. I think you can also mount a 420 radiator, looking at the mounting holes right here. I also asked Mike if it maybe would be possible to add another radiator in the bottom. He said he was trying it, but he's not so sure if it would be possible size-wise to fit another radiator on the bottom. That means all of those tubes are unique. They are dipped into water, which contains the color or the effect of the tubing. Therefore, all of those tubes will be unique. Thermaltake plans to have them available for order online, so you can order them online and have your very unique tubing. And typically, if you have some kind of shape on your tube, you would guess that if you heat them up and if you bend them, the effect or the color would crack at the bend itself. But that's not the case on this water dipping tube, so that's quite cool. And also, I think if you paid attention during the close-ups of the tubing and also of the case, you probably have noticed the coolant inside this build, which is also very, very unique. It has this shampoo effect that makes the fluid look very, very thick, like silver particles in there. Also looks kind of like sand, but it's not sand, it's also not silver particles, but it looks very, very nice. I also asked if this is going to be available. They're still working on it, so this is just a prototype right now, but this type of fluid gives the build a very, very nice effect. You can see, looking inside the GPU, that the water comes from the side, which I think is actually the wrong direction. Cooling-wise, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It's like half a degree or maybe 1 degree Celsius, but you can really see the flow effect so nicely, how it comes down on the right side, goes through the water jet, exits on the left and goes back into the tubing. We are now in front of the new Water REM Pro. You're probably already familiar with the Water REM RGB, which is a product that has been available for I think something like 1.5 years. Basically, Thermaltake is making memory modules and then they have their own heat spreader on them, where you can mount a water cooler on top of those heat spreaders, therefore dissipate the heat of the memory modules to the water. That's the Water REM RGB that has been around for a couple of months or years. Now we have the Water REM Pro, and the Water REM Pro comes with a different manufactured channel design. Basically, we don't have only a water cooling unit on top of the memory modules, but also water channels inside those heat spreaders. I personally have no idea how they solved this, because you really have to seal off the water block to those heat spreaders, and I think that's really a challenge. Unfortunately, we could not open it. I also asked if we can disassemble those memory modules and the heatsink. Unfortunately, it's the only thing they have, and it's currently in the system which is running. We have water flowing through the channel, so I can kind of understand that they cannot allow us to open this thing, but we might be able to get a sample of those and then we can maybe look inside and see how they solved this. Talking about memory in general from Thermaltake, I was just wondering if they are only an OEM or if they only buy memory modules from, I don't know, like Kingston or something like that, and then slam their own heat spreader on them. But then Thermaltake told me that they have their own factory, which means they make their own memory modules. They have to perform their own binning to make sure they can sustain speeds like 4000 or 4400 megahertz. Thermaltake Neon Maker is a new RGB software from Thermaltake. Most of the vendors, they just have a ton of RGB products, but then the software is not really that nice. The Neon Maker is such a well thought through software, and if you're familiar with, for example, Adobe Premiere or any kind of video editing software, you will like this software. I will just show you how it works. On the left side you can see an array of 8 RGB fans. Each individual fan contains 150 RGB LEDs, and in this software right here, which is very similar, as I said before, to a video editing software, we can see those 8 individual fans. And you can also completely configure the software yourself, just adjust it to the way you need it. For example, you could also have your CPU water block in here, your GPU water block. You can just align those exactly in the way you would have it in your own build. Then you can just double click in one of those fans to start to make your own color configuration. For example, let's just select blue, click on here and make the inner circle a little bit blue. Now we have this box right here on the bottom which has a length of 1 second. We can also adjust the length of this thing or create a new one that has only, for example, length of 0.04 seconds. Very similar to, for example, Adobe Premiere, you can also grab this box and just drag it around to increase the length of your animation. You can use multiple different tools like add an animation clockwise, counterclockwise, something like that. Therefore you can create your very own animation, for example what we have on the left here. And what is really nice is the fact that you have a playback, a live playback on here, and also at the same time right at your system where you can directly check what you created. Thermaltake also introduced a new CPU water block. It's the Pacific W7 Plus CPU water block, which is a skived heatsink. That means we have a copper plate and then we have a blade that's cutting into the copper and then lifting up those very, very thin blades, typically something like 0.1 to 0.2 millimeter thin fins on those cooling blocks. The skived heatsinks have a very high surface area, therefore potentially very high cooling performance. That's why they are also used in AIOs. But the downside of those skived heatsinks is that the water channels are so extremely thin that it's very likely that some smaller particles get stuck into the heatsink over time and therefore might block the water channels. Thermaltake also introduced a new GPU water block, which you can see right here, and the very interesting and unique thing about this water block is the fact how you can attach the fittings to the panel. There is a rotary panel on the GPU water block which allows to change the position of your fitting a little bit to the left, right, up, down, so you can easily align the fitting to existing parts in your loop. For example, the CPU water block, if you're missing like 4 or 5 millimeters to the left, you can just adjust it by the rotary panel. Thermaltake now also offers all of their fittings in a very nice white coating. Here, for example, their typical hard tubing fitting, and here we have a 90-degree rotary fitting. Mike said they might also add the 45-degree fittings and all other extensions later with the different coatings they now also offer. And this is their typical hard tubing fitting, which is a very nice design. It's made of 2 pieces. We have the bottom part right here and the top part right here, and they're sealed off over an O-ring. In total, this fitting contains 4 O-rings, which is really quite a lot. Most of the fittings only come with 2, some also only with 1, so having 4 in total really helps making this thing more leak-proof, and this special design also makes aligning of hard tubes a lot easier. The last thing you have to have in your RGB rainbow system obviously is an RGB PSU, and here we have the Tough Power ARGB PSUs from Thermaltake. They also have buttons on the back if you don't want to use software or want to connect it over a cable to your mainboard. You can connect it to additional components like your mainboard or RGB controllers over a cable that's sitting here in the front, but it also has buttons in the back where you can cycle through different modes or even different colors. The ARGB series comes with 650, 750 and 850 watt and is 80 plus gold certified. If you think that 80 plus gold is not enough, you can also go for the Tough Power Platinum series, which comes with 650, 750, also 850 watt and is 80 plus platinum certified. We are ending our journey at Thermaltake with some additional impressions from components and also from very nice build systems. Thanks for joining in and see you next time. Bye.